a man God helped. Hello there, my name is Pastor Tola, Odutola. I pastor Jesus House Baltimore. This is my story. I was born in the late 50s, and there is actually an argument about my exact birth date. And my mom chose one, my dad chose 7 days later, and I'll say, okay, why do we have the discrepancy? One of the things you might ask is that, was there no birth certificate? When I was born, there were no birth certificates, so that one puts that to rest. But I decided to choose the one my mom, chose the date. I left that of my dad out of it. My growing up years were both fun and some quite traumatic. I remember that when I was 6 years old, I went to a school, an elementary school, and to register. And I was told then, because we didn't have birth certificate, it was difficult to know your age. And one of the things that they do then for people in my age bracket will remember is that you have to put your hand on your head. And if it touches your hair, then it means that you are 6 and above, and then that's how you are admitted into the first grade. But because I was quite short and very tiny, in my early years, my hand did not touch my hair. But I was 6 years old, so nobody believed, and so I had to go back home. Then I came back when I was 7. By the time I was 7, quite a number of people my age mates were probably in 2nd and 3rd grade. So I more or less, I say I started late. But because I had been living with my grandmother, because my mom then was living with my stepdad in the northern part of Nigeria, so I lived with my maternal grandmother. When I got into school, I didn't understand what it meant to be in school. I didn't understand that, your time and how you do things have to be managed, so to say, by other people. So I endured till break time. And after break time, I just went home and I never came back to school, and my grandmother, God bless her, so she didn't even ask any questions. She just said, sit down and eat amala, and that's it. I think I was home for a few days, and my mom happened to come to the south just to, say, visit us. And then my mom asked what I was doing at home. I looked at her like, what do you mean, what am I doing at home? And my grandmother told her what had happened, and she shouted and then took me back to school. So that was the beginning of my, my school year. I went to a school called St. James's Primary School, in Odutola, Ibadan. Very, very big cathedral, school. The church was well known, even till today, in the city of Ibadan. So, but in between ages 8 and age 22 or 21, I ended up living with 5 different families. And some were very good, nice, enjoyed it, but 2 of it, was traumatic. The first one, I think I was age 8. I started living with my uncle. My uncle was a teacher, and that's my mom's younger brother, cousin, and I lived with him. But by the side of his house was a train station train, railroad tracks, and also people that were herding cows. The noise of those cows gave me nightmares, for many years, and the noise of the train, that at times I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm sweaty and I'm dreaming about cows, shouting, and also the rail tracks and things like that. But that was okay until when I turned 10. I was asked to live with the principal of my school then. And that's an experience I will never forget. I've talked about this experience at times, but it's, even when I say it, I feel a kind of, I don't know how to explain it, when I think back, what I went through. Because there were two of us living with him, and he had a wife, but he didn't have children then, So we were basically the ones doing the work, the home chores and all that, which, it's understandable. But part of my weekend chores was to do the clothes, to wash the clothing. And you wash every clothing, including other wear and everything, both the wives and the man's. And I asked myself several times, is this why, my mom asked me to come and live with this man? It was like a slave yard, really. I don't know the best word to use for it, but to me it was like slavery. We were beaten many times, or maybe I was beaten, because the other guy, he was quite sharp. He was very sharp, and he understood how to deal with issues like this, because I don't want to embarrass him, so I'm going to keep his name out, of this. But he knew how to get away with things, and I never got away with anything. I found out, very early in life that a lot of, bad things people do, I never get away with it. So I tried to walk right, even though I wasn't a Christian or a believer. I didn't know God, but I just knew that if people sneaked out to do one or two things, when it's my turn, it's going to be messed up. So I don't even, maybe there were some people in heaven just, trying to resist me to make sure that I don't go too far before God called me back, into ministry. Now, every Sunday evening, the man does a walk around the neighborhood, and I follow him, and that in itself, it's quite shameful, because in those days, not many people lived with principals or teachers, a few here and there. But he had this briefcase that I will carry, and I'm asking myself, why am I carrying a briefcase on a Sunday? I mean, it wasn't going to work. It was just doing a walk around. He'll walk around the street, the neighborhood, and then he will go to my neighborhood, because his house was not too far from my house. Yet I dare not go to my house without an exit, or excuse or whatever. If you do, maybe if I did that, maybe I will not be alive today to tell the story, because he just loved to beat people. I don't know why. I've talked about this many times, even growing up, that why did he do those things? At times I see maybe he too had his own, psychiatric issues or mental health issues, and he just, took it out on us, more so on me, because I was just, next door, to him, as it were. So going on the streets every Sunday evening, the children will be saying hi to him, because we all went to the same school in the neighborhood. And then they say, oh, look at Tola is carrying the, briefcase of the teacher, and da. And then some of the parents will call him and say to him, oh, my son so and so did something wrong. And the man will ask for a cane, and he will beat the child in front of the mom there, So Sunday, we were not even spared, the cane on Sunday. I thought Sunday was holy day. Even God rested on the seventh day, But there was no rest when it comes to beating, or being flogged. There was no rest. And for those children, always taunting me and telling me, oh, da 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 da. My first instinct was to fight, because I used to be involved in a lot of street fight, growing up. I did a lot of street fighting, Part of it, going back now, I think was just my frustration, of the way and manner that I was, being raised, living with family members that I had no business living with. I didn't know them, like that, So anyway.
Well, Pastor T, could you tell us, I know you mentioned, your experience so far with your principal, but could you tell us, did living with your principal shape you as a child? Did it make you more tough as a child, or how did that shape your character growing up?
Yeah, hindsight, people say it's 2020. The things that I went through in life, I can't take it away from who I am today. The rejection that I've felt and faced, toughened me up. Because I remember that when the church started, I had a lot of challenges, people coming in and going out and things like that. And I went to God and I said, what was the problem? And God reminded me and said, can you remember your principal? I said, yes. And God said, you followed him faithfully, carrying his briefcase. I said, yes. And God said to me, that's the same way I wanted to follow me, faithfully, without looking back. So I can say that it became the sort of strength for me, being beaten many times, flogged many times, it got to a point that really very few things really move me. I'm not really an emotional person, but growing older now, I'm getting more emotional. Do you understand? At times I'm asking, okay, why is this? Because I grew up tough. I had friends, but not everybody was my friend. So I was okay. So if people are not my friends today, it really doesn't matter. Do you understand? I don't feel anyhow if I go anywhere and people don't say hi to me. Or I dealt with all that when I was 10. Do you understand? So now I see it as this is child's play to what I went through then.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. A huge thank you to Pastor Tola for sharing such powerful and personal stories with us. Stay tuned every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time as we dive into further chapters of his story. Thank you.